Schools are facing a crisis. It's not a crumbling building or a lack of textbooks. It's something far more critical. This crisis is about something much more fundamental: teachers, the very backbone of our education system, or rather, the severe lack of them. The shortage is reaching alarming levels. Across the country, classrooms sit empty. Desks that should be filled with eager students are left vacant. Students stare at vacant desks, their education hanging in the balance. The impact on their learning is profound. The demand for substitute teachers has skyrocketed, leaving schools scrambling to fill the gaps. It's a desperate situation. This is a story about a system stretched thin, a profession in peril, and the students caught in the crossfire. Teachers are overwhelmed and students are suffering. This isn't just an inconvenience, it's a full-blown emergency. The stakes couldn't be higher. We're talking about the future of our children, our country, and frankly, the sanity of anyone who dares to step foot in a classroom these days. The pressure is immense. Buckle up, folks, because this is going to be a bumpy ride. The road ahead is uncertain, but the need for solutions is urgent. So why is this happening? Why are substitute teachers suddenly more sought after than a decent cup of coffee on a Monday morning? The answer, like most things in life, is complicated. It's a perfect storm of factors, a toxic cocktail of societal shifts and systemic failures. But let's break it down, shall we? First and foremost, there's a mass exodus of teachers from the profession. They're leaving in droves, fleeing classrooms faster than you can say summer vacation. And can you blame them? Between the low pay, the long hours, and the ever-increasing demands, teaching has become less of a calling and more of a recipe for burnout. Let's not forget the elephant in the room, COVID-19. The pandemic threw a grenade into the education system, and we're still picking up the shrapnel. Suddenly, teachers were thrust onto the front lines of a public health crisis, forced to adapt to online learning overnight while juggling their own anxieties and the needs of their students. The transition was rough, to say the least. Technical difficulties, student engagement issues, and the sheer exhaustion of it all took a toll. Many teachers, already feeling undervalued and underpaid, decided enough was enough. They packed their bags and headed for the exit, leaving schools scrambling to fill the void. But it's not just the pandemic, folks. Teaching has always been a demanding profession, a delicate dance of educating young minds while navigating bureaucratic hurdles and the ever-present threat of budget cuts. Add to that the pressure of standardized testing, the rise of classroom disruptions, and the constant scrutiny from parents and administrators, and it's no wonder teachers are feeling the heat. Imagine being expected to nurture a love of learning while simultaneously policing smartphone use, managing behavioral issues, and somehow finding time to pee during the day. It's a recipe for burnout, and teachers are paying the price. Their mental health is suffering, their passion for teaching is dwindling, and many are simply throwing in the towel. Section 5, a shrinking pool. Where have all the substitutes gone? So we have a mass exodus of teachers, but that's only half the problem. The other half, the pool of qualified substitute teachers is shrinking faster than a polar bear's ice cap. Remember those low wages and lack of benefits we talked about? Yeah, they don't exactly scream dream job to potential candidates. And let's be honest, substitute teaching isn't for the faint of heart. Walking into a classroom full of strangers, armed with nothing but a lesson plan and a prayer, requires a special kind of courage. You're essentially an educational mercenary, parachuting into the unknown, expected to maintain order and deliver a quality education with minimal preparation or support. Section 6. The price students pay learning lost in the shuffle. Now let's talk about the real victims in this whole mess, the students. They are the ones who are truly suffering, caught in the crossfire of an educational system in disarray. They're the ones who bear the brunt of this crisis, their education disrupted, their futures hanging in the balance. Every day they walk into classrooms that should be sanctuaries of learning, only to find chaos and uncertainty. Imagine walking into class day after day, only to be greeted by a revolving door of unfamiliar faces. Teachers come and go, and with each new face, the continuity of learning is shattered. How can you possibly learn effectively when you don't even know the person at the front of the room? Trust and rapport, which are essential for a productive learning environment, are impossible to build. Consistency is key to learning, and constant substitute teachers throw that out the window. The lack of a stable teaching presence means that students are constantly trying to adjust, never quite finding their footing. It's like trying to build a house on a foundation of sand. Without a solid base, everything crumbles and the structure becomes unstable. Students are missing out on valuable instruction, falling behind in their studies, and feeling a sense of instability in an environment that should be safe and predictable. The impact is profound, affecting not just their academic performance but also their emotional well-being. They deserve better, and it's high time we address this issue head-on. Section 7. A Day in the Trenches. Real teachers, real stories. Don't just take my word for it. Let's hear from some real teachers on the front lines of this crisis. These are the voices that often go unheard, the stories that rarely make headlines. Mrs. Johnson, a veteran English teacher, describes the situation as utter chaos. With over 20 years of experience, she has seen the education system change dramatically, but never has she felt so overwhelmed. She's constantly covering for absent colleagues, her own lesson plans pushed aside to maintain some semblance of order. The lack of substitute teachers means she often juggles multiple classes, each with its own unique challenges. It's like trying to put out a fire with a teaspoon, she says, her voice heavy with exhaustion. Late nights grading papers and early mornings preparing lessons have become her norm. Mr. Garcia, a young math teacher, echoes her sentiment. Fresh out of college, he entered the profession with enthusiasm and hope, but reality hit hard. I love my students, he says, but this isn't sustainable. The constant pressure to meet standards, the lack of resources, and the emotional toll are taking a heavy toll on him. He describes the constant pressure to do more with less, the emotional toll of seeing his colleagues burn out, and the frustration of knowing that his students deserve better. The passion he once had is slowly being eroded by the harsh realities of the job. These stories are not isolated incidents. They are a reflection of a systemic issue that affects educators nationwide. Each teacher's story adds to the growing chorus of voices calling for change. They're playing out in classrooms across the country, a testament to the dire state of our education system. The empty desks and weary faces are a stark reminder of the urgent need for reform. Our teachers deserve better, and so do our students. Section 8. Beyond the headlines. Statistics paint a grim picture. The numbers tell a similar story. According to a recent study, over 75% of schools report having difficulty finding substitute teachers. In some districts, the fill rate for substitute teacher requests has plummeted to below 50%. That means classrooms are sitting empty, students are missing out on valuable instruction, and the entire system is teetering on the brink of collapse. These statistics aren't just abstract numbers. They represent real children, real teachers, and a real crisis that demands our attention. We can't afford to ignore this problem any longer. The future of our education system, and by extension our society, depends on finding solutions. Section 9. Band-Aid solutions, short-term fixes for a long-term problem. So, what can be done? In the short term, schools are resorting to desperate measures. They're increasing substitute teacher pay, offering bonuses, and even asking administrators and support staff to cover classes. These are Band-Aid solutions, temporary fixes for a much larger problem. While these measures might provide some immediate relief, they don't address the root causes of the crisis: the low pay, the lack of respect, and the overwhelming demands placed on teachers. We need to think bigger, bolder, and more strategically if we want to fix this mess. Section 10. A glimmer of hope, emerging trends, and potential solutions. Thankfully, there are glimmers of hope on the horizon. Some states are investing in teacher residencies, providing aspiring educators with the training and support they need to succeed. Others are exploring innovative staffing models such as team teaching and co-teaching to reduce the burden on individual teachers. And perhaps most importantly, there's a growing movement to elevate the teaching profession, to recognize the vital role educators play in shaping our future. This includes advocating for higher salaries, better benefits, and more support for teachers' mental health and well-being. Section 11. Investing in our future. The urgent need for change. The crisis facing our education system is real, it's urgent, and it demands our attention. We can't afford to sit idly by while our schools crumble and our children fall behind. We need to invest in our teachers, support our schools, and prioritize education as the cornerstone of a thriving society. The time for action is now. Let's work together to ensure that every child, regardless of their zip code or background, has access to a quality education. The future depends on it.